We are live. Welcome to another week of the Midweek Mid-Range. My name is Luke Graham. I will be your host tonight. I'm along with Jamal. Jamal, what's up, man?
Oh, just chilling, waiting for hopefully another great playoff game tonight.
Oh yeah, second round's been awesome, man. And that's kind of what we're gonna hit on tonight, guys. It's playoff season, second round. It's getting good. Some good games been going on. Watched always got to rep my city and my alma mater with that Mitchell performance last night.
Ooh.
So let me get this going. For everyone at home watching, who'll be watching this now and after, I am not as good with the controls as our usual host Parker, so please forgive me. There will be some mistakes along the way. Well, man, you got anything that you want to start out with, or you want to jump right into this?
So I will say that the start of the second round has definitely gotten some surprises as we already seen. It's just amazing to me how one round changed and all of a sudden what we thought we knew, we really don't know anything. We really don't.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I couldn't agree with you more, man. And with that, just going to kind of jump into Hot Tea Cold Brew. So, Hot Tea Cold Brew is presented by our presenting sponsor, Yeti. Yeti, based out of Austin, Texas, keeps your tea hot, beer cold. Go check out that at Midweek Midrange on Twitter at Midweek Midrange. All of the logos and not logos, the sponsorship and links will be in there. Yeah, I'm also not that good at promo, so I'm just gonna own it live. I'm just gonna own everything live. It's a live show. There's no editing, so I'm just gonna be as human as possible during this. Came here to talk hoops, so let's talk hoops, man.
Let's do it.
So gotta rock the Brooklyn. A little bit of Kyrie tonight.
Okay.
So obviously gotta start out with this Nets Bucks series, dude. What a curb stomping! What a curb stomping! Was it 39 points the other night?
Oh yeah.
KD looked like he was back in Gold State. Kyrie looked like he never missed a beat. Blake Griffin looks like he never left LA. I think that's the biggest surprise. I think that's what's throwing people off right now. Detroit fans got to be pissed. We got to find one over here in our Belly Up Sports Podcast Network to come talk to us at some point. So more than just that, man. As far as the Hot Tea Cold Brew, we kind of talked about this in the Slack channel for a little bit. Let's just start it here. Hot Tea Cold Brew. Is Coach Bud on the hot seat? After that game to, I don't even want to call it a loss. That was demoralizing.
That wasn't a loss. That was a demolition. That's what that was.
Yeah.
So as far as him being on the hot seat, he has to be. I mean, how much longer is it going to take for him and the Bucks to take that next step? I mean, we all saw what happened in 2019 against the Toronto Raptors. You go up 2-0 and then you lose 4 in a row, including that heartbreaking Game 5, which pretty much cost them that series. And then come 2020, they basically bring this almost the same team back together. It almost looked like they were better than the 2019 version, if you even think that's even possible. Yeah. And then they have Miami just come in and just wreck them emotionally and mentally. And now, after they got over that hurdle against Miami this year, sweeping 4-0, I get it. Miami wasn't the same team as they were last year, but hey, Milwaukee wasn't the same either. They made some changes that needed to be made. And now you're going up against probably the most complete team that we have in the NBA in the playoffs remaining right now. Milwaukee really has their backs against the wall. And I really believe if they do not win Game 3, it doesn't matter what they do in Game 4. I'm calling it a wrap. And Bud is probably going to lose his job.
Yeah, no doubt. A little like non-Nets bias. I just watching them all season, knowing that they haven't had that much time to actually gel as a unit, plus a weird season. I don't see this being a clean sweep, maybe a gentleman's sweep. Honestly, maybe even 6. I mean, they do have a 2-time MVP on their team, and Drew can lock up Kyrie at some point. If Bud makes adjustments, which I'm not holding my breath, but I would like to think an NBA coach might want to do it at some point. If he can lock up Kyrie and Giannis can just stay on KD, at some point, Blake's not going to stay hot for every game, and Joe Harris as well. But with that said, they ruled out James Harden for Game 3, and Jeff Green is still questionable from everything I've seen. But, I mean, that's 2 really key pieces coming back for the Nets. It's so wild sitting here talking about the Nets like being a title favorite. Like, they were just so terrible a few years ago.
And you know, that's the crazy thing about the first 2 games is that think Bud made a mistake early on by putting PJ Tucker on Kevin Durant for much of the 2 games. Don't get me wrong, PJ Tucker is one of the best defenders in the game, but he's not, Giannis either. So I think Bud, for the majority of the game, has to put Giannis on KD, not to stop him, but to at least slow him down.
Yeah, no doubt. And some of the things I was hearing on the pods and news channels I was watching is it wasn't so much putting PJ on KD. It wasn't so much a move because he actually thought he could lock him down, and so he can get in his head. So KD, he has to chirp back. KD can't just take it. He just has to go back at him. So I think that was kind of a little bit more of the reasoning with PJ on him, and I really hope that's not the case because you have an all-defensive player in Giannis, and you have KD, and Giannis is arguably the only guy, maybe outside Anthony Davis, that could probably match up with KD.
Yes.
But I forget what I was listening to earlier, so I can't quote it verbatim, but he 90% of KD's shots so far have been covered, and he's shooting 50%. It's just stupid what he's doing. He just can't miss. But yeah, man, I agree with you. Coach Bud's on the hot seat. It's just he's gone, and we saw this in Atlanta too. Whenever he had that Hawks team, I believe they were a 1 seed down there, and they just got demolished. And it's the same story over again and over again. And at some point, they're going to have to bring in somebody in there who can make adjustments. Whenever you got talents of Drew and Giannis on your team.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see if Milwaukee ends up not winning the series. I wonder who might they bring in to to replace Bud. We've already seen some intriguing names on there. I know we mentioned Chauncey Billups. I actually threw in Sam Cassell. He actually could be a very interesting guy. But I wonder maybe if Terry Stotts might be interested in that job. Who knows?
Yeah, and that's a great point. My thing with Stotts, I feel like he kind of had the same situation a little bit in Portland, except Dame's a guard, Giannis is a big, so they're great in their own right. It's different, but you always got to wonder if Stotts had a big to go with Dame, or if he didn't have to rely on 36-year-old Melo the way he's had to, what he could do. But that's. Oh, I'm sure that'll be a conversation here in a few weeks on the midweek mid-range.
Definitely.
Kind of speaking of new coaches, a guy who finished in the top 3 for Coach of the Year over with the Suns. Oh, Monty, the Suns Nuggets series. Even before that series, in the first series with the Suns, it's just been so impressive to watch Devin Booker from the bubble until now, and how he is just taking a leap. Doesn't even seem fair to say. Some people have put it on coaching, some people have put it on Chris Paul, but he showed what he was capable of in the bubble. He showed what he was capable of needing to play meaningful games when they went undefeated in the bubble. They just had too many losses going in. Hot tea, cold brew. Is Book taking the leap, not so much even to the next level, but to superstardom?
He's getting close, and I tell you what, if he continues to play well and Phoenix wins this series, I think you might have to put him up there with the upper echelon as far as stars goes in the league. Because I was very impressed with what he did in the bubble. Because as I've always said, when the Suns went down there to Orlando, it wasn't like they were beating cupcake teams. They beat the Clippers, they beat Dallas, I think they beat San Antonio. Like, they were not beating like all these weaker teams. Like, they were taking on some real competition, and now they're bringing in that success from last year going into this year. You trade for Chris Paul, you sign Jay Crowder. Now you actually got veteran leadership to go with these young guys. And then Monty Williams having that steady hand on the bench. I think it's one of the more remarkable jobs that I've seen as far as a team turnaround, because a couple years ago, Phoenix won like 19 or so games. So now to actually see them in this position right now, it's just amazing. That doesn't mean that this series against the Nuggets is over per se, but I will say that Phoenix has definitely put themselves in a really good position going forward because of the moves they made.
Yeah, and no doubt, and also not just Booker. I mean, it just seems like everybody's kind of gelling. You got Bridges who's showing out. I bet Philly wishes they had one more guy right now.
Oh yeah,
and another guy who, never really got beat up on because Bagley's just been either so hurt or so bad. But, people tend to forget if they're not, just a hardcore fan or pay that close of attention to the NBA, Ayton went over Luka. Luka very well could be on the Suns team.
Oh yeah.
But I think Ayton's been holding his own. I think he's really taken a leap forward. He might not be a superstar, or he might not even be a multi-time All-Star, but at the same time, he's doing what he needs to do on this team, and that has a lot of value.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And with this team, he doesn't have to be a superstar. As long as he plays his role to the best of his ability, that just means the Suns are a much better team because of it. Because you already know what Booker brings to the table. You got great interchangeable pieces with Bridges and also Cam Johnson as well. I think Cameron Payne has been a very nice revelation for them as well. I don't think he gets enough credit. And I think he and Monty Morris, I think that'll be like the six-man key for this series that people may not be paying attention to. But yeah, I think Phoenix has really done, they did themselves justice by getting Booker finally the good pieces he needs to compete.
Yeah, no doubt. And the way Chris Paul can just, it's like he just does it however he wants. Like the game, it's on Chris Paul pace. It's not even fast or slow pace. It's just whatever Chris Paul feels like doing. Like that's going to be the pace of the game.
And I'm going to go ahead and call it now. I call robbery on Coach of the Year for Monty Williams. That was a highway robbery.
Yeah, I think that, and I heard this on a couple of things too, so it might sound like I'm taking the credit for it, but I was thinking this before it happened. I really think that Thibs deserved it to an extent, but a lot of I think what happened with Monty, if Chris Paul didn't come there, what do they look like? I think a lot of it, Chris Paul's there, so that got taken away from him a little bit. But at the same time, I think he deserved it. It's not just one guy who can make a team. So yeah, I think, and after your Nate McMillan take like a few weeks ago, I'm never arguing with you on coach discussions again. So
well, it's just all about. It's checks and balances because you see, I've always argued that Nate McMillan is one of the more underrated, appreciated coaches that we have in the league, and now what you see what's happening in Indiana right now, I think they're kind of wishing they didn't make that move.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Indiana is just a cluster. I can't wait to see who they fire next. But who you got in the Suns Nuggets series? Let's see, we got Suns 1-0 right now, getting ready to. That's game 2 tonight. What do you got for the series? What are you thinking?
So honestly, it's literally a toss up between these two teams. But with the injuries right now that Denver has, not just Jamal Murray, but Will Barton. They say he's coming back tonight, but I don't know what kind of shape he's going to be in and if that hamstring is going to tighten up on him or not. But I just believe that there's just too many injuries on the Nuggets team right now. And the way the Phoenix is playing and how confident they are, I would literally be shocked if Denver can end up winning this series. I picked them to win in 7, but it just comes to show that injuries just might be too much for this team. And Phoenix is playing really well.
Yeah, no doubt. I tend to lean with you right now. I know Jokic just won MVP. I think that Nuggets team, I think if Murray was there, it'd be a different story. But it just seems like Booker's getting whatever he wants now. And when players start getting whatever they want and they start making it, I can't go against that team right now. I just can't. So I'm going to go Suns in 6. Call that a sixer.
Sounds about right.
Suns in 6. Speaking of, we talked Coach of the Year. We hit on the guy we need to talk about next. Nate McMillan is doing work down in Atlanta. I really don't want to eat my words on the Hawks, but it's time, man. As soon as that Lord Pierce got fired, I wrote a piece, said the Hawks wouldn't win, said the Hawks are the Hawks, said Trae Young sucks, said that team's just they want to be 10 years in the future already. They just need to go out and grind like the Grizzlies. Whew.
How a couple of weeks have changed everything.
I don't feel like I deserve to be a host of a basketball podcast right now. And I feel like that's all people actually want to hear is whenever someone admits that. I just straight to the chase. I mean, they lost last night, but hot tea, cold brew. Are the Hawks for real, man?
I have to consider that they are for real because now, honestly, going into the series, I thought Philadelphia was probably going to dispose of them in 5 games. They possibly still could, but did we ever think that Trae Young would be this much of a problem? I mean, now granted, the Knicks, for as much praise as they got, Julius Randle being most improved player and then Tibb being coach of the year, the Knicks just did not have enough offense to keep up with Atlanta's offense. And now that Atlanta has gone up against Philly, I think they're going up against a more sound, more a much better defensive team that has more length on the perimeter that can bother Trae Young. As you saw throughout most of the game, when they had Ben Simmons on him for a good majority of the game, it gave Trae Young problems, and he ended up turning the ball over a lot more than he usually does. But as far as for Atlanta actually being for real, I think so. But it's going to be a very interesting offseason for them because you have John Collins is going to be a free agent coming up this year. He turned down that $90 million extension, I think he was, to bet on himself.
We don't the max.
Right. It was a max. I was shocked he turned that down. And now you got to think about DeAndre Hunter, who's now gone for the series with that knee injury. I think that kind of changes things now. Now you're not going to have him. So now the onus is going to have to be on Bogdanovich, Hooter, definitely Clint Capella, even though he's got his hands full with Embiid. I don't know how he's going to compete with that guy. But I really like what Atlanta's doing, and they better do the right thing and sign Nate McMillan to an extension. If it's 2-3 years, I don't care. They have to do it because you've seen the dramatic improvement they had since he's been the coach up to this point.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, their turnaround just almost immediately is just wild. And you can count it to a lot of things. It seems like that Lou Williams Rondo trade, everyone thought it was going to help the Clippers more. Maybe it did. But it looks like it's helping out the Hawks pretty good right now too. And you mentioned Collins. He wanted the max. He didn't want $90 million. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. You're right, because it seems like he wants his own team, and I'm going to hold true in the fact that he needs to take a step back there.
I agree. I'm
not ready to call Trae Young the next great thing in the NBA, but I'm sure as hell not ready to call John Collins that either. Kevin Huter's playing good, and Bogdanovich just
he's got moxie. He's got a lot of moxie.
Yeah, you go back and you think back to the beginning of the season or before the season started, and all that stuff that was going on with, the Bucks and the Kings, and all the just basically not going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now he's on the Hawks. You didn't give up any assets for him, and it's just like he's just so important, and you just got to wonder, well, what's he look like on the Bucks? What do the Hawks look like if the Kings organization actually knows how to run a franchise?
Right.
I mean, they paid him, so they didn't give up anything. I mean, he's taking up cap space, but that team has so many young people on it that they don't need to pay anybody right now, and they may have overpaid him, but they didn't even Sacramento didn't even challenge it. They had nothing, absolutely nothing from Atlanta.
And they wonder why they missed the playoffs for 15 straight years. You wonder why.
Yeah, you hire Luke Walton, then you just give up Bogdanovich. You don't deserve to make the playoffs. I can't wait until De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton force their way out of there, and Bagley thinks it's his show to run, and they're the next Timberwolves.
I'm surprised that DeAndre Fox actually signed that extension to stay there with all the issues going on over there. I thought he would have skipped town.
Yeah, me too. Another thing, I don't know how the hell this turned into a Kings podcast, but I'm running with it right now because I got some feelings. Buddy Hield, congratulations. You're a good three-point shooter. Fun fact, it's 2021. Everybody has a GOAT like that. I think what separates him is he's just not a superstar. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, Joe Harris is the fourth or fifth best player on the Nets, and he's a better guy than Buddy Hield, and I'm pretty sure he's making significantly less money.
Oh,
so, yeah. And Vladdy, I know Vladdy's not there anymore, but he didn't take Luka because he didn't want Luka because of some international thing. I don't know if their countries had it out for each other. Bagley said something over top. It's like one thing after another with the Kings, and this is going to continue to happen. And it really sucks because De'Aaron Fox is a talent. Halliburton is a 35-year-old in a 22-year-old body.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's got game.
And now they have nothing for the Bogdanovich trade or signing, and he's shown out in the playoffs for the Hawks.
And it sucks too because Sacramento is such a good basketball town because you and I both know this going back to late 90s, early 2000s, C Webb and all those guys, that was a great town to play basketball.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. C Webb, Mike Bibby, Vladdy was on those teams, little white chocolate action going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Those, I started paying attention to basketball right around that time. That's kind of how I became a Nets fan for some stupid reason. Whenever it was like the Nets getting troshed by the Lakers in the finals, I was like, I like this kid. I like this kid, guys. Kerry Kittle's guy seems pretty cool too. What about this Kenyon Martin? And meantime, like Shaq and Kobe are just like, yeah, we're the Lakers. So anyway, anyway, I guess it worked out. It just took 20 years and me not caring about the NBA for a while, but. Yeah, so it's definitely a hardcore fan base. I like going back, and especially during the pandemic, rewatching some of those games. And I think it was game 6 of 02 or 03, the Western Conference Finals. That historic. That is, was it? You know what I'm talking about? That historic.
Oh
bad calling game.
Every basketball fan knows that game. Everyone knows that game.
It's funny. I've listened to podcasts and stuff. About like was it Tim Donaghy? Yeah, Tim Donaghy. I've listened to that podcast, and they talk about that. And you hear media moguls talk about it as well. But I was reading 11 Rings by Phil Jackson, and he was just kind of like, yeah, we shot a lot of free throws. They shot a lot of free throws. I was like, okay, yeah, that's not what happened. Like it was, the Kings got screwed. And they should have been in the finals.
They should have been.
Yeah, but anyway, that was way too much Kings talk, but it was pretty fun going back to being 6 years old. So, the Hawks are just one part of this. I think we both agree that they're turning into a real threat. I don't think the Sixers expected. I think the Sixers will win. I'll probably say Sixers in 6 just to make it interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Sixers expected game 1 to happen. So I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm at a sports bar. I got my Brooklyn stuff on, and my buddy's from the Philadelphia area.
Oh.
And I don't know how this happens, but like these 3 other guys walk in who just happen to be from Philly, and they end up befriending each other. They're just ripping shots and having a good time. And I'm just doing Brooklyn chants in the back, probably too many in.
I can only imagine how this is going to go.
And I mean, it was awesome. He showed up in a Philly hat and Iverson jersey and the throwback red shorts, and I'm just sitting there just ripping beers. I'm trying to cut back my carbs, so I'm over here drinking High Noons, and it was awesome. And they're just cheering at that comeback, and I'm just like, I don't know, even if it happens, Brooklyn. But it worked out good. The other 3 guys didn't talk to me, and my buddy told me a few cuss words. But other than that, we're all good.
You're probably fortunate that's all that happened.
Yeah, that's fine. Everybody deserves to get hit by a Philly fan once, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, so the Sixers, right? What are we expecting out of them? Embiid just showed out the other night, and he's got that partially torn meniscus. Went 39 a couple nights ago. Then he dropped 40, playoff career high. This is kind of what Shaq and Chuck were talking about a couple years ago when they continuously called him out. He's hitting that stage to where he can just kind of do whatever he wants. Now, I don't know if he's ever going to have the dominance like Shaq, but I think he can still be a MVP. I think he's still going to be extremely special. I feel like people just expect Shaq to do too much. Shaq's, I think he deserves to, or I think he needs to get 9.5 points a quarter. I'm like, you're Shaq. Like,
right. You can get away with that. Most people can't.
I don't think you ever saw yourself in a jersey next to someone else. Like, you're Shaq. Like, is it normal?
Mm-hmm.
But what do we really make of the Sixers here? Like, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that they lost to the Hawks in game 1. Doc made the right adjustments. Thibault and Simmons were on Trae Young, kind of took him out. Sixers pretty much took control of game 2. But what are we really expecting out of the Sixers moving forward? Like, if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, can they beat the Nets or the Bucks?
So, honestly, Philadelphia is in a very peculiar situation right now because, say, for instance, if they split the 2 games in Atlanta, now we're looking at a 2-2 situation where Philadelphia is basically saying, well, honestly, this honestly shouldn't have gone more close to or at 6 games. Like we should finish this in 5, maybe a sweep, because we have the better defensive team. We know we have the most dominant player in this series in Joel Embiid. Clint Capella cannot handle that, man. I don't care what anybody says. But right now, I think Chuck made a great point on TNT yesterday. Embiid and the Sixers, they have the advantage in the paint. However, Atlanta has the better perimeter players. And I think that's going to really be the difference in the series. So it would behoove the Sixers to really key in. First of all, you have to at least get Ben Simmons on Trae Young for as many minutes as both of them are on the court. That has to be the matchup. I'm not saying stop Trae Young, but you have to slow him down. You have to cut off the head of the snake. Because if you do that, you're going to take Bogdanovich, you're going to take Hooter, you're going to take Gallinari out of the game when they come in. So it's going to be interesting to see how the series goes from here on out. And I think these next 2 games in Atlanta is really going to dictate what's actually going to happen. If the series goes 2-2, there's a really good chance this might go 7. So if I'm Philadelphia, I need to get both of these games in Atlanta.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you make great points there. It's, I just can't believe we're sitting here in June talking about the freaking Hawks. God, I'm so pissed about this. God, this is
because I remember us on this show a couple weeks ago how most of us were pretty much trashing the Hawks. Their season's done. They're not going anywhere. Already fired their coach. All their offseason moves were basically junk. They overpaid money and all that. And now to see them sitting here trying to put out another top flight team in the Eastern Conference, so like, does a few months really change a lot? And apparently it has.
If I wasn't such a man of integrity, I would take that Hawks piece off the internet. I have the ability. I just haven't done it yet. I'm not going to do it. It needs to be out there. It needs to be a reminder not to judge so quickly.
Of course.
But I think you talked about cutting off the head of the snake and Trae Young. No, you have 2 of. Can we call Thibault a top 5 defender? Let's see. We got Simmons, Giannis, AD, Drew.
You have to put Gobert, especially he just won the defensive player.
Gobert, yeah. But as far as like wing guys and can guard out on the perimeter, I mean Simmons, Drew. I feel like Thibault's like somewhere in the top 15, which is impressive for how young he is.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got those 2 guys. Just take out Young. Let everybody else on the Hawks beat you.
Mm-hmm.
If Kevin Huter beats you or Bogdanovich beats you or
then
Collins,
you're going home.
Yeah, it's like it's just not your year. If that's what the case, it's just not your year. But you just have too much talent there as far as defenders go to let Trae Young beat you. And I think that's a good adjustment they made in game 2. Now, with that said, we've seen some special Doc teams over the year. Everybody just remembers his championship in Boston. It's like people just completely forget about Lob City and the loaded teams he had in LA and the 3-1 comeback last year in the playoffs. It's like that happened. That is also on Doc Rivers' resume.
It's unfortunate, and that's the way it is. But I think there's something different about this Philly team, and honestly, it points to Simmons and Embiid, because I think both of them realize what's at stake, not just for Doc but themselves as well. Is the process going to turn out what it's supposed to be? And honestly, right now, I'm looking at Ben Simmons. Only scored 4 points in game 2. Yes, he did a great job against Trae Young, but sooner or later, he's going to have to pick up his game, because this may get him past Atlanta. It's not going to fly against Brooklyn.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with that to an extent. The only thing I want to push back on is I agree, 4 points is a little too small, but that shows me the buy-in with Doc. It shows me Ben Simmons bought into Joel being the guy. It showed me Ben Simmons bought into his role. And I feel like all that happens because of Doc. It sounds like day one Doc came in. Joel's our guy. I've been in the league a long time. I played. I coached. Joel's the guy. It's just how it's going to be. He's just a freak. It's wild what he's up. And I think I have no inside knowledge whatsoever. But it's almost like you told Ben. It's like you're top 2 defender in the league. Go be that guy. we can win championships if you go be that guy. Don't try to be Joel Embiid. He's going to be him, and you just go be that lockdown defensive guy because they need that too. And it might not show up in the stat sheet, but it's going to lead to max contracts. It's going to lead to rings.
I agree. It's really going to say a lot. Should they go ahead and beat Atlanta, and then they're really going to have that big test, no matter who it is, if it's Milwaukee or Brooklyn, they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't talk about the Hawks or Sixers anymore because it's making me actually nauseous. Something that doesn't make me nauseous, though, is talking about one of Louisville's finest. L1C4, that's our logo here. Louisville first, Cardinal forever. Donovan Mitchell is a savage. He is a beast. He is hitting superstar. I don't know what it is about the Jazz. It's like I feel like superstars just kind of go there and it's like, it's the Jazz. And then, like we just don't talk about them ever again. But there was a point in the third quarter last night where, the Jazz just started missing shots. And it just seemed like Donovan noticed and he was like, you know what? It's my game now. And he just went on a tear. And, it really wasn't talked about that much. It's like, yeah, no, he's hitting, that superstardom level and all this. I'm like, no, what he did was like he took that next step. We talked about Booker earlier. Like Mitchell, I think, has just surpassed that. Like what he did last night just surprised the hell out of me. I think Gobert's a little overrated. I'm just going out there and saying that to an extent. I think he's a great talent, but as far as leading a team, I think Mitchell's not on this team. I don't even know if this is a playoff team you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But all that kind of leads to they were playing a team who happens to just, I don't know, not show up in big moments, never made a Western Conference Finals. Talked about Doc having all those great teams. Hot tea, cold brew. Are the Clippers just about to implode again?
Well, to me, it's too early to tell because it was only game one. So I can't draw too many conclusions off of just one game. However, game two will say a lot about both teams. Yeah. So, for instance, say the Clippers win game two. I'm going to look at Donovan Mitchell in Utah and say, well, you had home court. You've been basically the best and most dominant home team throughout the NBA, and then you just gave up home court advantage. So that would be a concern to me right there. Now, if the Jazz win, they go up to nothing. All the pressure shifts on Kawhi Leonard and especially Paul George after laying an egg in game one when you go 4 for 17 like that. For the Clippers to win, he cannot do that. Like period. I know he's going up against some pretty tough defenders and in his good buddy Joe Ingles. Royce O'Neal, I don't think gets enough credit at being a good defender. And Utah did all that, and Mike Conley didn't even play. So that really adds to the concern for the Clippers. So it's a must-win game for the Clippers tomorrow night. So if they don't win that game, it's very hard. It's hard for me to conceive them winning 4 out of 5 going the rest of the way.
Did you actually get to watch the full game, or did you catch like the IRTNT thing the next day? Or
no, I sat and watched the whole game, and I think the guys on the set actually made a good point where the Clippers were basically playing on just pure emotion after that Game 7 win against Dallas, and Utah had like 5-6 days of rest after they finished off Memphis. So it always goes to rest versus rust. Which one basically plays itself out? Well, we saw that last night. So now I want to see what adjustments both teams make coming tomorrow night.
I know that the reason I asked that was they showed this stat of Kawhi in the Mavericks series, where in games they won, he did not miss a shot in the fourth quarter,
which is insane.
Like for people like watching and is going to watch in the future, but not miss a shot. I'm talking free throws, 2s, and 3s. Didn't miss a shot. He did not miss one shot in the fourth quarter of games they won. That is, I can't wrap my head. That's why you get to live in San Diego, take your own plane, not go to practice if you don't want to, because of moments like that.
Exactly.
That is so stupid, dude. I saw that. I was like, that's not right. And thank God I listened to like 6 podcasts today, and I finally heard someone say it, and it was like, yeah, did you see that stat? I was like, I'm not crazy.
It took me at least 5 minutes to let that sink in when I heard that stat. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Didn't miss a shot. That is stupid. Jesus. Anyway, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Yeah, so Clippers Jazz. For all this talk we just had, I'm actually going to go Clippers in 7. I know that's crazy. I love Donovan Mitchell. Shout out Cards, L1C4. But I'm going Clippers in 7. Kawhi's just he's got the resume. That's the only reason I'm going there. He's got the resume.
It's prove it time for Mitchell. He's got to prove it because Utah has, for all the talk we give about the Clippers not making the conference finals, Utah hasn't made it since 2007 when we had Deron Williams and Carlos Boozer together. So it's prove it time for Mitchell and those boys. So I got Utah in 7.
Speaking of Deron Williams, would have been nice if he would have stayed in Utah.
Oh yeah.
I can't act like I was paying that close of attention to the NBA. Then I'm not going to be too salty about it. Everything led to this. So we talked about the Clippers and we talked about Kawhi and not missing a shot in the fourth quarters of games they've won. Those games they won actually came against the Dallas Mavericks in the first round. We haven't really hit on the first round. We're probably not going to really do much of that tonight. I'm sure we'll do a recap of everything once it's all said and done. But what stood out so much, and I think everybody can attest to it, is the Luka-magic thing is for real. Luka, yes. We've known Luka's been for real, but what was so blatantly obvious in that series is that when Tim Hardaway Jr. is your second best player, you're not going to achieve much, and I don't care how great you are. The one scenario to where I think that can be taken back is that last finals team LeBron got the Cavs with.
Mm-hmm.
But still, you had vets on that team, or older vets. This Mavs team, I just don't think is that strong, which kind of leads me to this final hot tea cold brew. Is the Mavs roster holding Luka back, or is Luka just not taking that step up yet? That next step up, which is I don't even when I say next step up, I'm talking
upper echelon.
Let's just call it what it is. When Luka is all said and done, he's going to be at least top 10, maybe top 5.
I agree. And I've been fighting over this for the last couple of days because I know you and I were talking back and forth about this. So is it purely the roster? Perhaps, because as you saw with the whole roster, you got Tim Hardaway Jr., you got Dorian Finney-Smith, you got Porzingis. God, I want to strangle Porzingis. You are 7'3". You should be doing more than averaging 13 points and 5 rebounds. That is pathetic.
Yeah.
You got Kleba, who's a good countermelee role player. I think
Boban.
Yeah, of course you got Boban. You can't forget him. You can't do that.
He started meaningful games, which means the roster is great.
Exactly. But I don't think it's so much as it's a roster issue. I think to me it might be a coaching issue. I think we may need to take another look at Rick Carlisle. Now I know he won that title with Dirk back in 2011, literally a decade ago. But
literally, wow, God, yeah.
Literally a decade ago. They have not won a playoff series since that point.
They haven't won a series since then.
A series, none.
Wow, I did not know that.
So I think we really have to start looking at him and saying, well, it's been 10 years. What have you done for me lately? He has a talented roster. And for the most part, they've had one of the most efficient offenses that we've seen in probably the league's history. But like I said, it's the same thing with Portland. Well, yeah, they have a great offense, but they can't stop nobody. So what good does it do you? So I think Dallas really needs to look at the roster, see what improvements you can make for Luka. But at the same time, I think we really need to start looking at Rick Carlisle. He might, I don't know if it's going to be the axe right now or maybe a year or two later, but I think they may need to start looking at that.
And, I'm really glad you brought that up. For those watching now and that'll be watching in the future, we communicate on this sometimes before the show starts in Slack channels days prior. And sometimes we just throw stuff at each other like this right now. And It's funny that you say that because I've been thinking the same thing. And I've talked to some Mavs fans before, and they like Carlisle, and I get it. I agree with you, and I think where I agree the most I don't even want to say I agree the most. I feel like this is kind of a different point. I think the coach that they should have is in Texas and is coaching a bad team.
Hmm.
Because I really think that Silas should have just taken a bump up. Um, I I don't have any proof to that. I don't have any reason or not. My reason being is I think I'm not. I'm not stumbling over my words. I'm trying to find a way to put this. Silas just seems like a really good coach, and Carlisle just seems like what you just said. He hasn't won a playoff series in a decade, and Silas. I mean, he won a game. He just won a game in general with that crap Rockets
Hmm.
roster. With John Wall and Christian Wood or the lack thereof, and young guys were getting some valuable minutes, and it just seemed like this Mavericks team just had a little bit better of a chance last year. And that could be a little bit Seth Curry. It could be a little bit of a pandemic-ridden season, or it's like you said, it could just be Carlisle, man. At some point, 10 years, I mean, he's been there longer than that. That's a long time to be a coach in one place.
Oh yeah. And what really bought him all that time was getting that title in 2011. That got him a
Yeah,
lot of borrowed time from Mark Cuban.
yeah,
But Mark Cuban already said he's sticking with them. But I
yeah,
just wonder how much longer can you afford that? Are you really going to waste Luka's prime there? And that's exactly what he does not want to do.
yeah. And I think there's a few guys in the league, and we talked about Luka being one of those upper echelon guys. You know, Kobe and Jordan wanted Phil. LeBron kind of had his choice of whoever he wanted as coach, ever since probably his first stint in Cleveland, maybe. Other than that funny year in Miami where there's rumors he was like, I don't like Spo, and Pat Riley's like, I don't give a shit. But
That's actually pretty interesting.
that story's out there. Like Riley just didn't care. But it could be Luka. He's not there yet, but it's very obvious that's the trajectory he is on. Um, and I don't think that is. I don't think that's too far of a stretch to say. Like I think Luke is going to be one of those guys, and if he wants Carlisle there, then I think that's just what's going to happen. Especially because he's got to get this max signed. I think Cuban's going to do whatever it takes to get this max signed.
Oh, that no question. And Luka's already made it clear he's going to sign
Yeah,
it. Like there's no question about that.
yeah,
But the thing with me with Luka, and this might be the only flaw in his game that I see right now. It's his free throw shooting. I think he
yeah.
shot below 50% for that 7-game series, and that's not going to cut it. So that's the one thing he needs to improve on. But if he does that, I will literally argue he is not top 5. I think he's top 3, maybe top 2 in this league right now.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And he's just so young. I think he's 22 right now. It's just people forget how young he is
Mm-hmm.
and the steps he's already taken. It's everybody wants to play that. Not everybody. I don't know apply an absolute, but I mean we see Trey Young, we see DeAndre Ayton. They both came out of that draft class. This isn't the same scenario. If Trey Young or DeAndre Ayton are on this Hawks team or on this Mavericks team and not Luka, they don't make the playoffs.
I agree.
And Luka almost beat who is probably, I don't want to say the West is wide open, but I mean he beat a team with a reigning champion like Kawhi Leonard, who he went toe to toe with. Like Kawhi had to.
He was clowning him.
Yeah,
Him and Paul George. It didn't matter who the Clippers put on him.
And it's just so impressive what he's been doing. And you hit on it. You said you want to strangle Kristaps. I don't blame you, man. It's not in a literal sense. It's 2021. I don't know who would get offended by that, but it is annoying because they made the trade. They gave up picks. They gave up a little bit of the future, and now they're getting nothing out of him. And it sounds like Kristaps just pissed off because he's not the guy. I mean, if you want to be the guy, like go to Oklahoma City, get Al Horford back. Al Horford would be fine just sitting next to Luka.
Right.
Or go. I don't even go to Minnesota. Get somebody else back. Give up whatever picks you have left and Porzingis and literally the rest of your roster and try to get Cat. I mean, that's the only way he's ever going to be the guy.
And it's a shame too because I saw him his first couple of years in New York, and I'm sitting here like, ooh, this guy. I think New York may finally be onto something when they first drafted him. But now to see him just basically be whittled to literally just a perimeter player, it's a waste.
Yeah. And that goes back to your point on Carlisle, man. You know, is that Porzingis or is that Carlisle?
It's both. It's
Yeah.
on both of them. It's Carlisle not putting him in the right position, and it's on Porzingis' part not doing other things rather than just shoot the ball from 28 feet.
Yeah, no doubt. Like Porzingis has to buy in, and Carlisle has to play his player strength. Like the thing that separates like coaches who just get to stick around and great coaches, just like knowing your guy's strengths. Like you have to get him to buy in, but if Kristaps is better in other spots, like don't isolate him in one spot. Like you can't do that. And right now, this is a very Luka dominant team because it needs to be, because he's that special and he can, you know, draw in defenders and kick it out to wherever. They just don't have anyone who's going to create space for him. And just keeping Kristaps on the wing isn't going to do anything.
Well, when I was surprised that Dallas really did not go with more pick and roll with those two guys.
Yeah.
Because I think if they would have done that a little bit more, it would have caused even more problems for LA's defense, because they shredded them in those first 3 games in LA. They did not have an answer for him.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they need a big. They need a big. Like if they're not going to be able to trade Porzingis. We'll never say never in this league. They might get John Wall, but like, you know, they need a big, like at some point. Who that big is, I don't know, but I mean, we've seen some crazy things happen in the league, so
agreed.
I'm not going to be surprised with whatever happens. But that kind of wraps up Hot Tea Cold Tea. Next, we are going to hit on something you brought up a couple days ago, and I love the idea. Just jump right to it. So we talked about the Mavs; they've been eliminated. What team? I'll let you go. What team that has been eliminated has the brightest future so far? And here to the folks listening now and in the future, we're kind of young team, old team. Who has the brightest future?
So I'm gonna do this a couple ways. So I'm gonna start in the West. So the West, who we got eliminated, you had Memphis, you had Dallas, Portland, and 2-7 matchup, LA. Out of those 4 teams, I'm telling people right now, pay attention to this Memphis team. They are young, they are hungry, and John Morant is only going to get better. And you have Dillon Brooks, who looked like the perfect villain as I saw that game one against Utah. I'm like, that's perfect yin and yang right there.
Yeah.
So you let these guys really mature and develop their game, and they got one of the youngest coaches in the league, Taylor Jenkins. He's only like 36.
Yeah.
So you let these guys stick together for a little bit. I forget to mention Jaren Jackson. Let him develop his game. I'm telling you, this Memphis team could be very, very scary.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I love Memphis too. I'm going to let you jump on whatever you want to jump to next. I want to hit on something with Memphis real quick. I mean, you're talking Desmond Bain, Xavier Tillman, Jaren Jackson Jr., Dillon Brooks, John Morant. Grayson Allen can be a spot-up 3-point shooter.
Yes.
They just have so much. The biggest thing that is coming out of this is at some point you have to trade some of those to put a guy next to Ja. Or you just ride it out. And if you have to trade to put next to Ja, what is that? Is it Jaren Jackson? Does Ja really have a wingman right now is the thing?
Well, right now I say it's Dillon Brooks, and I don't know if you want to get rid of that edge, because I saw him going up, giving Steph Curry lots of hell. Yeah. I know he was John with Donovan Mitchell. You need those guys.
Yeah, no doubt. And what's so interesting about that is coming into the season, it just seemed like it was going to be Triple J and Ja. Like it just seemed like that was going to be those guys and everyone else. And now it's like, is it Dillon and Ja? Is, and I know they don't play the same position, but is Dillon, can, Ja be, I'm not, you'll get what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Is Ja Steph and is Dillon Draymond, and are you looking for that Clay? As far as just another guy, I mean, you got the guy who's going to be a superstar. You got that guy who's just going to talk trash and get in your head. And then you just need the other guy who's just going to show up to work and just humiliate you whenever he feels like it.
Yes, and I just like the approach that Memphis is taking, because let's look back. It wasn't too far ago where they still had the grit and grind Grizzlies, where you had Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, and all those boys. Memphis is ahead of schedule. a lot quicker than I thought they would be. So they're in prime position. I do say they do need to be careful about Jaren Jackson and that knee injury. If they can slowly bring him back, I think we might look at Memphis the next 5-6 years as a top 5 team in the West, because I don't know what's Portland going to be like next year. I don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers if they're going to really keep their group together. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts as we go further along. So now with the West out of the way, now I want to go to the East, where we have Washington beat by Philly. We have Atlanta that took down New York. The 3-6 matchup, Miami getting swept by Milwaukee. And then, excuse me, you have the 2-7 matchup. Who was that?
East 2-7. That was
Brooklyn and Boston. Yeah. So out of the 4 teams I see right there, it's tough because part of me wants to say New York, but it's all going to depend on what happens in the offseason and free agency. I think if they can land a star or two, I think New York will really challenge the top dogs in the East, but that remains to be seen. Miami, they still have their culture. I mean, are you really going to bet against Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra? I can't do that because of their track record. Yeah. Boston, I think Boston is really the team that is really in flux right now, because now they're searching for a new head coach. There's already trade rumors circling around, not just getting a brain cramp right here. Kemba Walker, but it's not just him. You also got to look at Jaylen Brown as well. So Boston really has to think about what their future is going to be and who they're going to place besides Jason Tatum. Because, like I said with Luka, do not waste that man's prime, because you saw what he did in that series against Brooklyn. That man cannot be taken lightly. And then Washington, it's really going to be interesting to see what happens with Bradley Beal. Is he really going to stick with his word and stay with Washington? Or is he going to look elsewhere and see, well, look, I've done all I can for Washington. It's time for me to move on. And through most of the season this year, we've seen a lot of teams who were in the running that maybe try to pry him away from the Wizards. One of them being Denver, because I'm not so sure Will Barton is the correct guy for the 2 guard. And then we already saw what happened to Murray. So who knows?
Yeah, no doubt. And I love how you just broke down each of those teams too. Because I literally just thought of this as you were talking, that Boston and Washington specifically. There's a guy who's going to be a free agent. I think Boston's going to have to do some work to make the room for him. How good does Kyle Lowry look in a Celtic uniform next year?
Ooh, interesting.
Now, it would mean that Marcus Smart was dealt, and it probably meant they would have to get rid. First of all, I don't think I think Brown and Tatum are there. I just think they're there. Tatum 100%. I think it would take. I think if Brown's gone, you got a special superstar under a contract coming in.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be Bill. I think it would be someone else. Maybe like a. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but maybe like a Simmons, someone who's locked up for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But man, the more I think about it, like Kyle Lowry on a team like that, everyone expects Philly, and I'm just kind of waiting for that. Like, nah, I'm not going to Philly. I'm going to go here instead.
Right.
And I think that'd be awesome. And they need to be really smart about who they hire as coach. I don't know if you listen to the Ringer pods, but whenever the Boston stuff happened, Bill Simmons, Ron Russillo, KOC, Jackie McMullen, they all were talking about it. They're all Boston people. And they kept on talking about Chauncey. And the more they talked about Chauncey, it's like, why isn't this guy a head coach yet? And, how smart he is, what he accomplished, Western Conference Finals with the Nuggets. We know what he did with the Pistons. Why isn't he a coach yet? And the more I listen to that pod, it just sounds like he hadn't been, or he just hadn't done enough yet as a coach, or not even just as a coach, but just in general with the game yet since he retired.
Of course.
So, the whole Steve Nash Brooklyn thing, it was like he worked with Kevin Durant in Golden State. Like that's probably why he got the job. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, Kevin Durant went up to Steve. Like, okay, cool, that'll work. But as far as the brightest future out of the East, it's hard not to say the Celtics, just because for me it's Celtics and Mavs, just because it's like Tatum and Luka, and that's just what I look at. I look at the superstars. I look their ceiling's the highest out of everybody, and I love Ja. I love Ja to death. I think that team has so much talent. I've been riding this Grizzlies bandwagon ever since Ja got drafted, and Murray State's just a few hours from where I'm at. So I watched him in college some, and I always knew he was going to be special when he got drafted. I made some pretty bold takes whenever that draft was coming up that I'm not going to repeat on a YouTube channel just in case. That had to do with him and Zion and their order, but
Man, now that's bold.
I didn't say anything for certain, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future with those teams. But yeah, it's funny. The one guy we didn't talk about and the one team we didn't talk about was Zion and the Pelicans, and I think that really goes to show that even though you got Brandon Ingram and Zion, just how bad that team looked this year from coaching. Talk about a team that needs Chauncey.
Yeah, I think you would be a good fit there, but I don't know. New Orleans, they're really in a peculiar situation right now because you have Zion. How much more happier can you make Brandon Ingram? And then I don't know what they're gonna do with Bledsoe or some of these other guys, but if New Orleans really wants to make some noise in the West, I think they really gotta think about what's their identity. I think that's the main question that's facing that team. What's your identity?
Yeah, no doubt. I think the best thing that can happen in New Orleans, honestly, is an NBA expansion. Because if who they get expanded to where it sounds like what the NBA wants would be Seattle and Vegas.
Yeah.
And if that happens, they would have to move a team to the East. And I think it would be New Orleans would make the most sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would either be them or Minnesota is what I would think that would be the case.
Yeah. And I mean, I think as long as Zion's in New Orleans, like the NBA would do New Orleans just to make Zion more prevalent, just because the top of the East is pretty stacked, but there's no arguing. Like the West is just deeper.
Oh, in the West, it's a dogfight every night.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, man, that was fun. That was a lot, and it's the playoffs are just so fun. You never know what's going to happen. It looks like Brooklyn could run away with it, but everything else going on right now and all the fights that are happening between all the other teams, it's just so fun right now. We were talking about Book earlier. I just look up and he's just got like this 29-foot shot, and he's just like, that's a shot, and he just felt like taking it, and it just went in. So it's fun talking about it, like looking over and seeing it actually happen. But
definitely,
this is the part of the show where we're going to hit the buzzer beater. Buzzer beater is 24 seconds, where we just fire off a hot take opinion. Likely, it's usually probably going to be basketball related, but if you don't want it to be basketball related, it doesn't have to be. Maul, floor is yours. Let me get my timer started. Anybody listening or watching, please don't text me right now and anything inappropriate because I'm going to have my phone to the screen. All right. All right. I'm going to count down from 3. You ready?
Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
So congratulations to Nikola Jokic for winning the MVP. And definitely a big shout out from Shaq, who congratulated him last year. So date back 21 years ago to this day, Shaq actually set an NBA record, an NBA Finals record for free throw attempts in a game when he attempted 39 in Game 2 of the NBA Finals against the Indiana Pacers. They ended up winning that game, but that game was more known for Kobe Bryant spraining his ankle.
Oh, God. I love doing these with you, man. It's like every time it amazes me.
Well, that just goes back to doing research beforehand.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, I'm gonna hit. We got research. I had my little nugget pulled up and it slipped away from me. There it was. All right, here we go. In 3, to big shout out to Louisville's own Donovan Mitchell. I've talked about him before on this pod. We'll continue to talk about him in the future. 45 last night, 16 of 30 from the field. Really is taking that stride to be great. Really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do with the Jazz in the future. And it's just really awesome to see a guy from my alma mater really just showing out in the league, no doubt.
No question. I think should he and the Jazz win this series, I think we really have to consider him as a real, probably a top 6-7 player in this league right now. That's really not getting enough respect.
Yeah, and it was really cool seeing Wade coach him up on the sidelines. And he talked about it after the game, and it was kind of funny that Wade got like part ownership of that team because like that was kind of his comparison is like if he's going to be anybody, he's going to be Wade.
Yeah, I mean it was him, and I heard Shaq mention it earlier. I think Donovan Mitchell might be a baby Mitch Richmond.
Okay.
I mean that's kind of bold because I know Mitch was a bad boy in his day.
Yeah. No doubt. I didn't watch much Mitch Richmond. I'm going to need to go back and watch stuff now, so I got a little bit of homework assignment. I know I'm on next week. So I'll come back with some Mitch Richmond, a couple nuggets on him. But he split a couple defenders last night and went to the hoop, and it was on, I don't know if it was on Twitter, it was on highlight on SportsCenter, but the way in which he did it, they were like, that's very Wade-esque. It's like, dude, that was extremely Wade-esque. That was extremely Wade-esque.
Oh, yeah.
But that is all we got. Jamal, where can we find you, man?
So the tag that you saw on the screen down there, that's my Twitter handle. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well. Still trying to build up a couple things on there, but hey, that's the easiest place to find me.
Yeah, no doubt. And y'all can find me at LAGram2 on Twitter, and then at LAGram on Snapchat, and then Instagram's Gram6141. I am obviously taking care of the Nets beat, so please check out Belly Up Sports. Come find content. I just wrote a piece about James Harden and the Nets. That the Nets are without Harden but not out. So it just kind of goes into detail about what the Nets can take care of, and while they're not done, just because James Harden's out. And I think we talked about it a little bit prior, but Harden is out for Game 3. I know This is not a Nets podcast, but it is my week to host, and I am a Brooklyn fan, so I will be hitting you all with Nets updates as often as I can. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Midweek Midrange. Please go, definitely go follow Belly Up Sports on Twitter and all the pages on social media. But also make sure you put in your email whenever you go to bellyupsports.com. Subscribe to the list, get some sweet emails, find out some good stuff. And find out all our podcasts. It's just one of a bunch of amazing podcasts on the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network. So until next time, next Wednesday, thanks for pulling up, guys. Y'all be easy.